Hello, judges. My name is Resnick, and I'm a freshman from Lower Moreland High School. My project this year was based in computer science with an application towards macroeconomics. I specifically chose to focus on Okun's law, which is regarded as somewhat accurate but largely imperfect. I first began thinking about economics in correlation with the 2019 COVID epidemic. A recession of that size would have surely had devastating and lasting effects on an economy and the people that live within that country. So I began researching the relevant literature and studies, in which I came across an economic law which outlined the relationship between a country's GDP and its unemployment rate. I became even more interested when I learned the variable within the law relating changes in unemployment to changes in GDP, which is Okun's coefficient, was very controversial over its accuracy and usefulness within the law. While I understood that I could apply the real-world values for each variable of the law for just the quarter that COVID-19 struck, I began thinking about applying huge datasets filled with real-world information through a rewritten version of the law to get hundreds of outputted values. These values, once averaged, would display an economically accurate representation of Okun's coefficient and make the law much more applicable in day-to-day use. Throughout this experiment, I learned many things about economics and Okun's law. However, the most interesting thing that I found was that Okun's law begins to falter after a major spike in either unemployment or GDP. This means that I would need to eliminate outliers or spikes as they come up in my own results. Now, I would like to discuss some of the more code-based analysis, which was the bulk of my experimentation. The purpose of the code on the left was essentially to import all the CSVs that I needed and put them in a list. But I also needed to find a way of organizing all the dates across all the CSVs in an easy and efficient manner. The code on the right uses intervals of 0.25 to represent quarters in a year, and since there are 4 quarters in a year, and 4 0.25s in the number 1, all the datasets were organized through numerical values representing quarters. That loop ended up being critical in aligning all the datasets. Some other sections of my code organized all the values from different CSVs to the appropriate date, removed outliers, and ran all the data through my rewritten version of Okun's law, resulting in many outputs of the coefficient. In the end, I found that the true value of Okun's law, or rather Okun's coefficient, is 1.69 and not 2 as Okun had originally predicted. I think this research can be applied to assist economists, given that the accurate version of Okun's coefficient in the regular law can help predict market trends and market deviations. And as far as errors, there were some serious outliers, but upon further investigation, I traced all of those back to economic recessions and certain disparities within the economy. In order to ensure that such outliers did not greatly affect the average, which was what I was aiming to get, I removed them all. I also believe that in further study, I can actually apply the newly calculated relationship to different economies to test for its accuracy. Or alternatively, I could use datasets from multiple different economies to compare economic disparities just using the rewritten version of Okun's law. Thank you so much for listening.